Hi, you're watching Floyd Steinberg's YouTube channel. Over the last 25 years I've bought and sold a lot of synthesizers, and today I'm going to rank them, worst to best. Here we go! Well, some of the instruments on this list won't qualify as a traditional synthesizer in the classical meaning, but yeah. I think as long as it can produce sounds on its own without the help of any other computer or something, it will qualify for this list. So let's start with a Digitone MK300. I bought this instrument for my niece who wanted to learn the piano, and for that purpose it's quite good. The piano sound isn't too bad, and as are the strings and the drums and all the other classical general MIDI sounds. And it's got a MIDI connector, and you can connect the sustain pedal, and that for a very low price. But compared to the other stuff appearing on this list, this probably isn't the best synthesizer. Back in 1994 I really wanted to have a Korg wave station, but this thing was expensive, and so for me it was the Yamaha TG-33, which is the desktop version of the SY22, and that is a FM sample-based hybrid synth by Yamaha. And what can I say, it didn't sound too good. There are some great pads on there, but the built-in effects and the samples, which are 12-bit, sound kind of tinny, and I sold it a year later in 1995. Perhaps today, if I had one and could program it myself, I would see this one in a different light. So yeah, if you want me to review one on my channel, please leave a comment. Next on this list is the Korg X5D. This is an entry-level synthesizer by Korg, which includes some famous sounds from their back catalogue. For example, the Korg M1 piano and the Universe patch. Yeah, what can I say? I bought this one in 2003, there were some nice patches on it. The piano didn't sound too good, but the strings did. And back in that day I just began working in my job, and I had no time for music, so this synth only collected dust in the corner. I only have one photograph from that time, and which proves that I ever owned one, and yeah, I sold it off relatively quick. Next, the V machine. Now this is interesting. I bought this 2 years ago to show it off on my channel, and yeah, it's a small box running Linux, running Wine, which is an API emulation layer, so you can run your favorite VST plugins in a small and portable format. And the problem with this machine nowadays is it's not very compatible anymore, and you will have a hard time getting your favorite programs to run on that. So I'd advise you to buy a stick PC and the Korg Lano control instead. So, and with a little bit of tweaking and setup, you can get a remote controlled VST portable machine for your setup. The Kawai GMEGA. This is a Roland sound canvas clone from the early 90s. I bought one in 1995 and it had a really great piano and string sound for the time, and I wasn't interested in creating my own sounds back then. But I bought one year ago to show on this channel and found out it's quite a capable synth actually. You have some filters and LFOs and envelopes and all the stuff you need to create your own sounds, and it doesn't sound too bad actually. If you're interested, you can watch my old video here. Next on this list are the Teenage Engineering pocket operators. What can I say about these devices? They're tiny, they're portable, and they're fun, but they're also very limited and they don't sound too good. My least favorite one was the robot. I don't even know what's the purpose of that thing. Followed by the arcade, which is a kind of fun 8-bit synth-tuned synthesizer. My favorite one perhaps was the PO16 arcade, which isn't locked down to a certain musical scale. And the PO33, the sampler. That one is quite good actually. You can carry it around, it has this built-in microphone. It's a really fun device, but in the end they all have their shortcomings and the novelty wears off quite quickly. So I sold them all to buy other stuff. Next on this list is the Teenage Engineering OP1. I bought one of those some 8 years ago, and this is a quite interesting machine. It's some kind of portable workstation built around a 4-track recorder, and you've got multiple synth engines, a sampler, a sequencer, drum machine, and effects units, and then you record your stuff to this 4-track tape. And once you're done, you can transfer the tape to a record and then export that to your PC or any other machine. The problem for me was this workflow didn't suit the way I work. It's a great synth, and it's just not my thing. Next on this list is the M-Audio Venom, a virtual analog synthesizer from the early 2010s. It's got 12 voices of polyphony and multi-timbrality, and it does sound very aggressive, hence the name. Problem nowadays is the drivers are incompatible with modern operating systems. So if you want to edit the sounds, you have to use a software, and using that over standard MIDI cables is very, very slow. And you can't edit the sounds directly on the user interface, or you can only add certain parameters like filter and the envelopes, but anything else you have to use your computer for, and this is quite inflexible. So it does sound good, it has a great feature set, for example the audio inputs, which you can use the internal effects on, but compared to the rest of the stuff still coming up on this list, it's the right place. Next on this list is the Roland Fantom X6, which is a workstation from the late 2000s, I think, and I bought one because I wanted to have a synth which can replace my DAW, and so I can record audio tracks and process them right on the keyboard. And back at that time, the F6 was the only machine who could actually pull that off. So I bought one, and it was very expensive. I brought it home, I set it up, and it collected dust. And I think the main reasons for that is because the preset sounds on that machine were so dull and uninspiring, at least for me. And the user interface wasn't that great either. The screen was nice and it was a color display, but if you used your head and tilted it ever so slightly, you couldn't read anything on that damn thing. And the knobs, I think they were not continuous, but you could audibly hear, you could hear steps once you turned the knobs to adjust the filter, for example. So whenever I turned that thing on, I got distracted quite quickly. So next on this list is the Yamaha MOXF6, which I bought after selling the Roland Fantom. And yeah, sound-wise this was a vast improvement, and all the sounds on there are really great, and they invited to play and improvise. But at that time I focus shifted from just playing music to creating sounds, and I started getting interested in sound synthesis. And for that, this was the wrong machine, unfortunately, so I sold it off after a year or so. Next on the list is the Yamaha Reface CS, which I bought because the guy on eBay sold it in a bundle with a Reface CP. And yeah, it's quite a nice virtual analog 8-voice polyphonic synth, battery powered, and a nice user interface with sliders. But the thing that put me off was the lack of velocity sensitivity, the mono effects, and the fact that you can store your patches locally, but you have to use Yamaha's SoundMondo website to do that. And as I have other virtual analog synths and hybrid synth here, I really didn't need that in my setup, so I sold it again. Next on the list, the DAFM Sega Genesis synthesizer. 4-operator FM synthesizer, 6-voice polyphony. I built it myself, and the creator of the synth just released an OS update which adds controllers and velocity sensitivity, program changes, and a lot more. So this thing got just a little bit more useful, and I'll do another video on this soon. Next on this list is the Technics WSA1R, which is a modeling sample-based hybrid synth from the mid-90s. This is quite a unique synth which can produce quite unique sounds, but overall I just didn't use it, so I sold it again. Now we're in the top 10, and on number 10 we find the Korg Prophecy. And technically speaking, I didn't buy this myself, but instead I borrowed it from a friend for a very long time, someone in the 90s, and that was one very fascinating synth at the time. It was a virtual modeling synth, monophonic, but the sound it was able to produce were quite unheard of until then. And still today it sounds very powerful, and yeah, have a look. And on 9 we find the Refaces CP. This is a wonderful little keyboard which has a lot of classic E-piano sounds and one hidden acoustic piano. It's battery powered, it's got built-in speakers, you can take it outside or anywhere you want and play, and it has great effects. But overall I just found I didn't use it a lot in the last month, so I sold it. But perhaps I'll buy one in the future, who knows. And on place 8 we have the Yamaha AM200, which is a groove box from the early 2000s featuring Yamaha's AM1 synthesis engine. And yeah, this thing sounds absolutely fantastic. The only reason I sold it is because I have another synth which sounds equally fantastic, and the AM200 has some bugs. And it's not possible to edit all the sound parameters directly on its own user interface. You need to use a PC to do that. And because of that, I sold it again some months ago. And on 7 we get the Novation Circuit. This is a fantastic groove box from some years ago, and Novation keeps updating this thing. It has 2 synth engines with 6 voices of polyphony each, and can also play samples, and I think they even added the functionality to play those samples chromatically. Yeah. It's a great synth, but once again I sold that thing because I found something which suited my needs a little bit more, and more on that later. Here's a short demo of the circuit. And on place 6 of this list we've got the Zoom ARC96. So if you have a look at the Novation Circuit's features and just double down on them, then you get this device. It's a groove box, 16 voices of polyphony and multi-timbrality, and on top of that you get a full-blown sampler and the ability to play back samples. And there's a MIDI sequencer in it, and you have this ring which has 96 pads which are velocity sensitive and have aftertouch. I think polyphonic aftertouch even. This is a great device, but I have to mention that I had to buy 2 of them because on the first one the select button stopped working after some time. And some weeks ago this happened on the second unit too. So now I sent it in. I think I won't get another one because there's another device coming up in this list which replaces this. And we're entering the top 5 with the Waldorf Blofeld. This is an overall fantastic synth. It does sound really great, and the effects sound great, the synth engine sounds great. You've got a complex modulation matrix, and the user interface is one of the best I've ever seen in any synthesizer. It's got a comp filter, and you can create any sound you can think of easily on the synthesizer. The downsides are there are only 5 knobs on it, so you have to go a lot of menu diving, which is unfortunate in such a complex synth. And I didn't like that you have to buy the sample option separately for 100 bucks or so. This is a bit expensive. Yeah, other than that, I can only recommend this synthesizer. I sold it to fund another machine, which we'll get to later. Place 4 belongs to the Yamaha Reface DX. This was my favorite Reface, and it's got 32 places to store your sounds, a 4-operator FM synthesizer engine, and a selection of great sounding stereo effects, a velocity sensitive keyboard, a pitch shifting stick or a pitch bend stick, and yeah, overall this thing really sounds fantastic, and there are a lot of unique features on there. For example, you can add feedback to every operator, which you can't find on any other synth I know. So the sounds you are able to create on that machine are outstanding. And we're entering the top 3 with the Electron Digitone. And yeah, this is a 4-operator FM synthesizer, just like the Reface DX. And I would say that the Reface DX is the overall better synthesizer than this one. But this machine makes it up with its very complex sequencer and the ability to play 4 voices separately, so it's multi-timbral. Yeah. This is a great machine, and it's the centerpiece of many home studios, and it's rightfully so. And the second best synth I ever bought is the Novation Peak. This is a virtual analog filter hybrid synthesizer. It's got 8 voices of polyphony, and it's got an enormously great sounding effects section, and there are so many options to be found here to create sounds. You can use wavetables, you can use standard oscillators, and it's got a deep and complex modulation matrix. You can use a number of envelopes, and you can use detuning and all the stuff you could ever dream of on a synthesizer. And the best thing is nearly every function has its own knob or button or slider. And so creating sounds is quite quick and very easy if you know what you're doing. So yeah, one of the best synthesizers of all time, perhaps a future classic, and I'm really happy to own one. Yeah, and my all-time favorite synth is of course the Yamaha EX5. I bought this machine 4 years ago, and I still haven't explored all its possibilities. I think it has 128-note voice polyphony and 16-part multi-timbrality. It's a workstation from the late 90s, and it has 4 different synthesis engines: virtual analog, virtual acoustic, FDSP, and Yamaha's AWM sample-based engine. And all of these engines have unique and powerful features. For example, on the AWM engine, each oscillator can have 4 own filters which can be controlled by envelopes. You have a mod matrix which can apply to any of those oscillators, and the envelopes have far more than the standard 4 phases. And yeah, the effects still sound quite good. And the keyboard is great. You've got a lot of controllers, for example 3 mod wheels and a ribbon controller and 6 knobs to control filter cutoff frequency and other stuff. And these controllers are continuous, so you don't hear any steps while you twist them. So yeah, there are a lot of videos on my channel on this machine, and if I ever had to sell all of my synths and keep only one, it would be this. So that's my list. Do you disagree or do you agree with me? Please write down below in the comments and tell me what's your favorite synth and your least favorite synth. And as always, thanks for watching and see you next week. Bye bye.